This one's a day of Ian McDonald, because I'd just done a review for the Dervish House, which if I ever figure out how to do that on YouTube, I'll post a link to. And someone reminded me of Time Was. This was a book I adored. I gave it 5 stars. I was intrigued by every second of the reading. And it's also by Ian McDonald. So this author's obviously a very hit or miss for me. Dervish House, miss of magnitude unbelievable. Time Was, beautiful book. So our narrator, whose name never really materializes till late in the book, is a bibliophile who makes their living from dealing used books. I mean, how can an omnivorous reader not love that character right there? Give me a bibliophile or an avid reader and you've got me. So the book starts with the collapse of a venerable old bookshop in the Spitfields in England, where many book dealers are sifting through the last leftovers of the shop in an alley, and our narrator comes across a fascinating little book of poetry in which there's a letter. Setting this scene was marvellous. Any of us who love second-hand bookshops, and a large proportion of my books come from second-hand bookshops, are seeing the collapse of the old bookshops that are like the dreams of yesteryear, and the fact that Ian McDonald managed to become so evocative with the way this bookshop had closed and been an institution in the area, and all these last books that couldn't be sold in the sale were just lying there in the damp. Whew. Heady stuff. Anyway, so this book that the narrator has picked up, it sells online, in which is apparently the usual second-hand dealer way, but the letter is so fascinating to him that he hangs on to it. It's a hint into how, during World War II, Tom and Ben became lovers. And the letter leads to a fascinating slow chase after the story of Ben and Tom, who clearly had or have a unique secret. And I believe that at first the narrator thinks that that secret is the fact that they're in love, because Ben and Tom are both male. And in World War II, that was still not something you'd be parading around. But slowly it emerges that the secret was probably a bit more secretive than that even. So it's exceptionally well written, beautifully conceived, elegant progression, and I found it fascinating and brilliant. It's quite slow, I think, compared to some books, but it never lost me, unlike other books that have been mentioned recently. The writing kept me going all the time. If I put it down, I resented putting it down. When I picked it up, it was with a sense of joy. I never lost my place and I never forgot who people were. So thank you, Ian McDonald, for this one. The blurb for this book, however, is far from brilliant, and I suspect will lead to many disappointed readers. There are strong indications to me that whoever wrote the blurb on the back of that book had not only never read this book, but had never bothered to have a sit down for a coffee and a chat with anyone who had. Why do publishers let this happen? There's no need for it. This came from a mainstream publishing house. It would have been sending out ARC, Advanced Reader Copy books, to people before it was published. All the blurb writer had to do was go to one of those ARC reviews and read it. No, I don't know what book he thought he was writing the blurb for, but it wasn't this one. 90% certain. So the romance is never more than ephemeral. And trying to hook people into this book by telling them it's going to be a gay romance, that's not how you're going to do it. The romance is sweet and it's tantalizing because we see so little bits of it here, there. You pick it up slowly and it slowly coalesces into a bit of a jewel-like jigsaw puzzle. But it's not what this book is mainly about. It's mainly the mystery. The letters, Tom and Ben's mysterious appearance. I got hints of The Old Guard, the movie here, because the narrator starts to realize that Ben and Tom appear in photos, and they appear in a range of photos from a whole heap of different wars. And I like the subtle use of science in building the plot. So no spoilers, but we are talking about time travel here, in a sense. And I think that the diverse theories that would have led to that construct would include the uncertainty principle and quantum mechanics. It was lightly written, so the average reader could follow where they're going with it, which is useful because I'm the first to admit that my maths and my physics are not good. I don't understand most of the hard sciences, really, and most of my physics come from sci-fi, which might not be the most reliable of sources. So I think that this book is strongly inspired by the Philadelphia experiment, and while I've read a number of sci-fi and speculative fiction novels inspired that event, I think, as far as I can remember, this is far and away the best of them. There was nothing about this book that I didn't like, really. It was a 5-star reading experience. It was a 5-star all the way through, and I think this is probably one that I will be reading again one day if I can get my hands on a real copy. So, one Ian McDonald I hate, and one that I love. At least I kept going.